designed system to attract financial resources. As a person, as a people, as a state, as a nation, the only designed system that is made to attract financial resources is productivity. So what do we make in Nigeria? I want us to take a look at everything here. Take a look at even his outfit. Take a look at it. Take a look at your shirt. Everything you see here now is a job. This thing is a job. This rug is a job. This red stuff is a job. The projector is a job. And I can tell you that about 98% of the things we have in this room is not made in Nigeria. If I were to be a wizard and I have a wand and I say, if everything that is not made in Nigeria here, it should disappear. We'll live here naked. Now, there's something you understand again. Everything that is made in Nigeria here that will remain are in their raw form. Do you know what I mean? The block will remain. The paint may not remain. The cement may not remain. Do you understand? Because there's a clause in our education that says Nigeria exports her raw material to do what? Make revenue. That is a chief characteristic of a third world country. When you export your raw materials to do what? Make revenue. Now, countries like China, you cannot see Chinese steel in any other country because they know they have population. So what do? They build industries that process their steel to value-added finished products like what? Cars. Abi? But now we buy those cars and we go to the church and we do what? Give testimony. But God told us to be what? Productive. A Lebanese, when you talk about made in Nigeria, people think it's only goods and services. But a Lebanese saw a language we call Pidgin English. How are they? We can speak Pidgin English. We see it as a conventional thing we used to talk. But the Lebanese saw the media potential in that language. And he invented a radio station called Wazobia FM and employed us and makes millions from that platform. Are you getting what I'm saying? Now, these people see more. You see Chinese on the road. They are looking at your suya. They are looking at your corn. You think they like it. They have learned it from a value chain standpoint. Now, they are thinking of looking at making that corn to golden morn. But we are thinking of roasting it and eating it 50 naira. Or doing what? Exporting it to a place that will make value-added finished products like golden morn and send back to us. When you people say some of us came from Aba, yes, some of us came from Aba. And in Aba, there used to be a textile mill there called Aba Textile Mill. Aba Textile Mill closed down in 1989. And as at 1989, it was employing 8,000 people. That time, when you talk about your culture, you know that you made the prints. Do you understand what I'm saying? I like his outfit. But you see that his rapper. Other people print those things for us and call it our culture. And we go and buy it from them. I get what I'm saying. So anytime you say you're a tailor, or you say you have done a startup and you have started selling material, one man in China is doing what? Counting money. Because throughout Nigeria, all the textile mills in Nigeria have closed down. Now, as at 1989, Nigerian fashion industry, what was Nigeria? We didn't even know anything about our fashion industry. But now we do a lot of material, a lot of designs, but we don't have a single textile mill. Meanwhile, between 1960 and 1970, the textile industry of Nigeria employed 25% of the workforce of over 145 million people. But today, we're about 200 million. And according to NDIC last year, 98% of Nigerians don't have up to 500,000 naira in their accounts. You want to argue that, yeah. But you know, the poorest people are not banked. They don't have accounts. Now, poverty has hit us from a standpoint of the fact that we do not produce. Anything that does not give out is diseased. It's just like you have a bird that's flying. If the bird only eats and doesn't excrete, it will die. Do you understand? Because we have become a reservoir of raw materials. We have learned so much. We have become a reservoir of information. But we are a 200 million people that doesn't produce anything and send out to the world. Because we have forgotten our Kegite language. That this language we call in school Kegite, yeah? Who doesn't know Kegite here? I was friends with a lot of them because I studied the language and it was so beautiful. It has media potential. And there are thousands of K-Guides all over the country. But what if I have a K-Guide radio station? I'll employ all of them. That is, you've made a relevant industry from that raw material called language. Do you understand? Now you look at people like Olamide. Olamide, Melo, Melo. You're talking about nursery poems, yeah? He processed it into a song. That was a Yoruba poem when they were in nursery school. Now, the music industry. And Fino will tell you that he picked up his culture and sold it from what? Coast to coast. Because he what? He processed the language into rap. I get what I'm saying. Now I'll come to a secondary school and tell them, what do you make from cassava? Everybody raises the person's hand because they know the ready answer. The most punctual answer is what? Gary. And there's another one, there's another English, after saying fufu and maybe tapioca, there's another English they start speaking. They'll say cassava flour. What's cassava flour? Cassava flour is Gary. You remember that this is an innovation that was made about 400 years ago by our forefathers. The same way they ate that Gary is the same way we eat it. Are you getting what I'm saying? Education has not taught us to do strawberry flavor Gary. Vanilla. You get what I'm saying? We have not, they don't know that from cassava you make ethanol, that all the drinks that we take, ethanol comes from there. And you use a disposable plate, this one that you close, you use a mama put, you close and fix, and you use rubber band round. You throw it away, you see chicken, go to eat it. They don't ask, because that thing is made from what? The cassava that we did what? We exported. Do you understand? Today, Nigeria spends $500 million annually importing oil from Malaysia. This is the same oil Malaysia bought from us. How have we failed the aspect of industrialization? The aspect of the fact that we do not produce anything. I went to modern ceramics. I went to all these places. I asked, what happened to these places? So I wrote a book. After going through all these things, I wrote a book the book will not naturally exhaustively bore you with the terminologies of industrialization, but I wrote a book of policies that says, because I believe I'm talking to leaders, because anybody that is aspiring to be a leader will always talk to other people as though they were leaders. God talks to us as if we are gods, right? Now, I did that book, and it's telling the generation the way to go. The fact that our education first of all, we'll talk about education. I believe that our education has a huge role to play in industrialization, because everything we learn, we didn't learn it from the standpoint of the value chain. We were made to jettison, to throw away our language. Our language was called vernacular in school. And if you speak Igbo language, they will flog you. The prefect will write your name, first of all. And after, the teacher will flog you for speaking your mother tongue. Now, that thing kind of made Opa look local and meat pie look. Now, they tell us again in school that Nigeria has cash crops. They have cocoa. They have limestone. They have this thing. But do you know how Nigeria gets money? Nigeria will export this thing, and it's processed there, and it's sent back to us. Every paper in this room is not made in Nigeria. I've done a lot of contracts for print, media, and stuff. Every paper in this room we have, none of them is made in Nigeria, but we export cocoa. We have not taught a generation how to produce. Now we keep setting up startups. Education too will tell you, start a business, entrepreneurship. Yeah. And you forget that you're talking to people that have even access to that entrepreneurship. So education should tell our leaders that in a place that produces cassava, there should be an ethanol plant. Because our education now should start solving our own problems. Our education should now tell us that in a place that is very dirty, we should learn waste management science, because everybody will naturally be employed. Now, you look at the people in primary one now, by the year 2034, they should be the leaders, yeah? Even if we don't die, by the year 2004, to some extent, they should be what are they learning? They are learning the same thing my father learned in school. They are learning the same thing my father's father learned in school. They are learning the same thing. We have not treated our education as infrastructure, because we are learning obsolete things. As a nation with 98% not having up to 500,000 in their accounts, we should be learning things that are geared towards productivity. We should start garnering skills, first of all. We should, at the end, after a time, you should not send your children to go and still go for lessons and still learn. Let your children go and learn how to bake. Let your children go and learn how to sew. Let them go and learn plumbing 101. Let them learn tailoring 101. Are you getting what I'm saying? This is how we gear towards industrialization. Let us learn about our infrastructure. I look at infrastructure from a standpoint of creativity. These lights are on now, but when you put on this light, someone comes to your mind. Apart from NEPA, someone comes to your mind. Who? Huh? Who invented the light bulb? Yes, he comes to your mind, and that is infrastructure. It was not the president of the United States that did that thing. It was not. It was not the Ministry of Petroleum in the United States that invented crude oil. And I've also treated it from a standpoint of skill and leadership. There's something we call skillful leadership. I believe that our children should know, the younger generation, because that's the only lifeline we have as a country now. Actually, I'm not a pessimistic person, like I told my friends, but the only standpoint we have, the only footing my optimism has is that we can inspire people. We retain that ability to tell people this is the way to go. This is the only hope the country has. So pointing the younger generation to the fact that before you lead the people, you should be a leader in the space of your own skill. There's many things happen in the country. We want to pursue. You see people say we want to productivity, Nigeria, entrepreneurship, and you are awarding one person 100 million because he wrote a business plan. Meanwhile, a company that used to employ 10,000 people that used to service the whole West Africa died because of 500 million. Look at people in the villages. People in the villages develop cassava and they go to farm and they bring it out and they go and sell it at the markets. You will not like to do that thing because you think you don't want to stand in the market with old women and drag with them. But if you know the value chain of cassava, you know that apart from going to that market, you can sell it to a company that produces ethanol, that sells to a brewery that produces drinks. When you get to this understanding, we can treat industrialization from a standpoint of processing. We should go back to processing our raw materials, all our raw materials. There is no other thing God blessed Nigeria with apart from raw materials. God did not bless us with good leaders. God did not bless us with even good citizens. We don't have many of them. But there's something that God has always kept with us, raw materials. How do we unearth these things? How do we bring them out? How do we look into them? How do we say this should go to this should go to this? With this, 500,000 people should be employed. With this, 10,000 people should be employed. Imagine that we make papers alone for our schools. Do you know how many tons of paper come into this country every day? Tons that we don't make here. And now you say, I've done a startup. I want to start a printing press. And any day you say that, one man in one other country is making a lot of money because they looked at their cocoa and said, no, we have to make paper with this. If not, we will not be productive. Productivity. We have to pursue productivity as a people, not startup. All the startups we have been learning since I was born, we are day to day. Have we asked why this startup starts and there are no more tomorrow? Imagine that when that company was employing 8,000 people, maybe you had a poultry farm and you processed your meat to maybe chicken suya, Abi, and you stood in front of there. You have 8,000 potential customers to sell to, right? This is what we have missed out. How do we tell the government to focus again on industrialization? How do we bring education back to learning things from the standpoint of the value chain? How do we not always say we want to consume? How do we produce and say no? Apart from production, we want to mass produce. These are the layers of what we should start teaching the next generation. And with this drive, with this movement, with an advocacy for industrial revolution, we should advocate from the standpoint of process. And with this advocacy, we will begin to change our mindsets to the fact that we should begin to produce again. Even this shoe, you say it's made in Aba, yes, but it was just assembled in Aba because the leather was not made in Aba. The sole was not made in Aba. Thank you very much.